Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Chaos in Southwest Nebraska. And folks, we have big news from the Big Ten, no pun intended. It has been announced that UCLA and USC are set to join the conference now, beginning in the fall of 2024, shaking up the college football landscape even more, and, well, college sports in general. And my initial thought was, oh, great, a couple more teams that can beat up on the Husker football team. But anyway, I kid. My thoughts, I was not surprised the Big Ten was looking to expand, especially once Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC. They were going to need to do something to compete. I was initially surprised that they added UCLA and USC. I thought if and when they did expand, I thought Notre Dame would have been a big player they would go after. Big Ten has plenty of money. They probably could have lured Notre Dame in. Top 10 program, playoff contender the past few years, as well as a large nationwide fan base. Another team I thought maybe get Clemson in there, lure them from the ACC with that money. Another playoff contender year in, year out. Good fan base, good program. And another program I thought they might go after possibly would be Kansas, because their men's basketball program is always a contender. Just recently won a national championship. But they went with the Southern California teams, that LA market. And, you think about it, money-wise, it all comes down to the money. They now have teams in or around the three largest TV markets in the United States, with Rutgers being close to New York City, as well as Maryland being close there, close to Baltimore, include Baltimore and D.C. in there as well. They're, top 6, 7, I believe. As well as Northwestern being located in the Chicagoland area, and Chicago in general being surrounded by the Big Ten. And now you add USC and UCLA to that mix, and you got LA. So now what was looking like $1 billion TV deal for the Big Ten is looking a lot larger than that now. Initially, it's like regionally it didn't make sense. I mean, maybe recruiting-wise makes a lot of sense. Get that Southern California recruiting for all the Big Ten. But, I think regional conferences have gone out the window now, and it's just the way it's going to be, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, the SEC and Big Ten look to expand to 18, 20 teams at this point. Nothing is off the table. And let's talk about the effects on Big Ten sports. We'll get to the big one, football, obviously, in a second, but obviously UCLA, blue blood in men's basketball. I think USC does pretty good as well. I'm not a big basketball fan, so I don't know. But this also adds to women's volleyball. The Big Ten has, above and beyond the best conference in women's volleyball, top to bottom, period. To everybody who talks about how great SEC football is, take that times 100 and you get Big Ten women's volleyball. And UCLA, another top program that just adds to that. USC, I believe, is a top 25 program, kind of hinges on that. And at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if year in, year out, you see at least a dozen teams from the Big Ten make the women's volleyball tournament. And anyway, on to the big one now, football. So do USC and UCLA just join the West and, beat up on my Huskers like everybody else does? Or do they go back to the Legends and Leaders division? Or do they do away with divisions? I don't know. Maybe just take the top 2 teams in the conference championship game. We'll see. Going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Also, do they realize that it snows in the Midwest? It's going to be interesting to see how the Southern California teams do in the snow. And another thing, all the away games for those teams in California, they got to fly to everyone, and it's a long flight. Rutgers is just as close to Iceland as they are LA. It's going to be quite a road trip, well, for either team. Also, let's just say Lincoln Riley gets USC back on track, and I think he will. He's an excellent coach. So he goes to Michigan. He plays a tough Wolverines team in Ann Arbor. He gets a home game the next week, and he has to have a slugfest with Wisconsin, and then turn around and has to make a trip to New Jersey to play Rutgers, and all of a sudden the team you should beat by 40 points, you're only ahead by a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter because, you're just getting wore out. I don't think it'll affect other sports like that as much because, volleyball and basketball teams do a lot of traveling in their non-conference. But that's not as physical sports either. But, what about when, You know, USC's ranked 6th in the nation and looking at a possible trip to the college football playoff, and all of a sudden they show up to East Lansing, Michigan, and it's -10 and windy out, and they get upset by a Michigan State team. Well, it could happen. There's no off weeks in the Big Ten. So we'll see how that all plays out. Also, how does this affect teams outside the Big Ten? How does this affect college football landscape in general? How does it, first off, Notre Dame, you know, how long before they have to join a conference? I mean, how long do they keep playing independent? And eventually they're going to fall behind, I believe, as these conferences get more powerful. And what does the Pac-12 do? Do they come to an agreement with the Big 12 now, or do they look to add teams? You know, do they add Fresno State and San Diego State to keep that Southern California presence? Do they maybe add a Boise State, who's always a top football program, top 25, at least top 30? Or, you know, do you look elsewhere? Do you maybe look to add a team from Texas to get that Texas recruiting ground? Do you maybe add a University of Texas, San Antonio, or an SMU? Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. So, anyway, whatever, if you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. And subscribe to the channel, like the videos. And Chaos in Southwest Nebraska, over and out.